This story is called, My Cheating Fiancé's Friends Actually Put Their Hands on Me After I Refused to Marry Her, so I pressed charges and ended up sending them all to jail. Hey everyone. Before we get into today's story, I just want to ask for a quick favor. The channel's been losing a bit of momentum lately, and honestly, subscribing is one of the easiest ways you can support us. It takes just a second, it's completely free, and it really helps us keep putting out content like this. Your support genuinely means a lot. Let's keep growing this channel together. I really appreciate it. Alright, let's get into it. I'm using a throwaway account because parts of this situation are still tied up in legal proceedings, and my main account would be way too easy to trace back to me. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this whole situation is insane. I still struggle to wrap my head around the fact that it actually happened. What started as a completely normal engagement somehow spiraled into 3 people ending up in state prison, 2 more getting probation, my ex possibly facing jail time, and her lawyer boyfriend likely losing his license. Even typing all of that out feels unreal. Alright, let me give you some background so you understand how things got this far. I'm a 34-year-old guy, and I met my ex-fiancée, 32, we'll call her Brianna, about 4 years ago at the sports bar I manage. And yeah, I know how that sounds. Managing a sports bar isn't exactly glamorous, but honestly, I love what I do. I started out bartending right after college, got a business degree I barely ever used, by the way, and worked my way up over time. Now I manage one of the top-performing locations in our chain. We pull in great business, have a solid group of regulars, and my staff actually enjoys working there, which, if you know the industry, is pretty rare. Brianna, on the other hand, was doing extremely well in real estate. She was one of those agents constantly posting things like, just closed another $1 million deal, on LinkedIn. You know, those not-so-humble brags every week. The first night we met, she came in with a group of her old high school friends, and on paper, they were all ridiculously successful. 2 corporate lawyers, a dermatologist, some high-level finance executive, something to do with hedge funds, I think, and a marketing director at a big tech company. They were celebrating a birthday that night, and ended up dropping around $600 on drinks and appetizers. After that, Brianna started coming in pretty regularly, mostly during my shifts. We clicked almost immediately. She liked that I could make her laugh, and I admired how motivated and driven she was. But her friends, looking back now, there were definitely warning signs. They'd make these subtle little comments about my job. Stuff like, it's so nice that you're content where you are, or, have you ever considered moving into corporate management? At the time, I brushed it off. When you're falling for someone, you tend to ignore that kind of thing. Things between us moved fast. And I mean really fast. Within 3 months, she was basically living at my place, and by the 1-year mark, we officially moved in together. I had a decent 2-bedroom apartment in one of those newer downtown buildings. It wasn't anything crazy, but it had a doorman and security cameras, which ends up being important later. The lease was in my name since I had better credit and had already been living there for a few years. For a while, life was genuinely good. Brianna was crushing it in her career. She was making more than twice what I earned, something her friends made sure I never forgot, but we were happy. Meanwhile, I was moving up at work. I got promoted to general manager and eventually started training new managers at other locations. Our families got along really well too. Her parents were this kind, older couple who treated me like I was part of the family, and my parents loved how ambitious and successful she was. Then last December, I decided it was time to propose. I planned out this whole weekend getaway to a mountain resort about 3 hours away. I went all out. Private dinner overlooking a lake, everything set up perfectly. I even hid the ring in her dessert. Yeah, I know. It's a little cheesy, but she'd always talked about wanting a proposal story she could tell people. And of course, she said yes. We spent the rest of the weekend celebrating and talking about wedding plans. We were aiming for October, before it got too cold, but after the peak summer wedding season when prices are insane. Her parents generously offered to cover most of the expenses, which was incredible. They put down around $40,000 in deposits for the venue, catering, flowers, everything. That detail becomes important later, because that's around the time things started to feel off. Brianna's friends suddenly needed to be involved in every single wedding decision. And I mean every decision. They had to approve the color scheme. The menu had to cater to all their dietary preferences. The seating chart had to make sure they got the best table. It was exhausting. And their comments about my job got worse. They'd say things like, Brianna, are you sure a 6 p.m. wedding works? Won't he be working then? Or, maybe we should go dress shopping on a Tuesday. That's probably a slow night at a sports bar, right? Just constant little jabs. And what made it worse was that Brianna never defended me. She'd either laugh along or, sometimes, even agree with them. Around the same time, I started noticing other changes. She was working later than usual. Suddenly, There were all these last-minute showings popping up at weird hours. She changed her phone password, started keeping her phone face down all the time. You know, all the classic signs. But I trusted her. Or maybe I was just being naive. Probably a bit of both. So at the bar, we've got this regular, I'll call her Nicole, not her real name, who comes in every Wednesday for trivia night with her coworkers. She's been coming for years. Always tips well. Never causes any issues. Honestly, she's the kind of customer you're actually glad to see walk through the door. She works in HR or something like that. Super friendly. Probably mid-30s. But one Wednesday, she's acting completely off. She keeps glancing at her phone, then at me, then back at her phone again. During trivia, she barely interacts with her group, which is unusual because she's normally really into it. Finally, during a break, she calls me over and asks if we can talk somewhere private. I'm thinking maybe there's an issue with another customer or something work-related. We've got a small office near the kitchen where I handle paperwork, so I take her in there. She looks seriously uncomfortable, like she's about to deliver really bad news. I don't know if I should be telling you this, she says, nervously fidgeting with her phone case. But if it were me, I'd want to know. Turns out, her sister, Megan, works at this high-end salon downtown. The kind of place where a haircut costs more than my monthly rent. That morning, Brianna had come in for highlights. Apparently, she'd been seeing Megan for about a year now, always scheduling appointments when I was at work. But this time was different. According to Megan, Brianna spent almost the entire appointment, around 2 hours, on the phone with someone, constantly calling them babe and baby. And since you're literally standing right next to someone while doing their hair, Megan heard everything. Brianna was laughing, making plans for a weekend trip, and talking about how her idiot fiancé, yeah, that would be me, would think she was attending a real estate conference. So now I'm standing there trying to process all of this. Part of me immediately wants to deny it. Maybe she was talking to a friend? I mean, some people call their friends babe, right? But Nicole wasn't finished. She pulls out her phone and shows me an Instagram story her sister had sent her. It was taken at this upscale restaurant about 2 towns over, someplace with a pretentious name like La Maison or something along those lines. The story itself was posted by some random couple celebrating their engagement. But in the background of their champagne toast photo, clear as day, there was Brianna, cuddled up next to some guy in a tailored, expensive-looking suit. And the worst part? That photo was from the previous Friday, the same night she told me she was out having a girls' night. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely keep hold of the phone. The timestamp on that story said 10:18 p.m. And at 10:24 p.m. that same night, Brianna had sent me a selfie, face masks on, sitting at home with her friends. She had literally staged a fake girls' night just to cover up her date. I thanked Nicole, though honestly, what do you even say to someone who just shattered your entire reality like that? She must have apologized 20 times, saying over and over how awful she felt. I told her she did the right thing, comped her groups tab for the night. My boss is pretty chill about that kind of thing, and then I went back to work. I still had about 5 hours left in my shift, and I just went through the motions on autopilot while my brain was going a mile a minute. Instead of confronting Brianna right then and there, I decided I needed more proof. At home, we had a shared iPad that we mostly used to watch Netflix in bed. A few months earlier, when her phone was getting repaired, Brianna had logged into her iCloud on it, and apparently forgot to log out. That night after my shift, while she was supposedly staying at a friend's place, yeah right, I picked up the iPad and opened it. Holy fucking shit. There were hundreds of messages between her and her ex, Connor. Not his real name. This wasn't some one-time mistake or random hookup. They had been seeing each other regularly, meeting up at this high-end hotel near his office for months. Like, going all the way back to March. The messages were graphic. No need to repeat them, but it wasn't just about sex. They were laughing about me, planning a future together, talking like they were going to do things right this time. And the worst part? Every single one of her friends knew. All those polished, successful professionals, they weren't just aware, they were actively helping her cheat. The group chat was full of them giving her tips on how to hide it better, making jokes about my job. At least Connor can take her somewhere nicer than bar food. They were even coaching her on what to say if I started getting suspicious. And it got worse. They were telling her to wait until after the wedding to leave me, because she'd get more money in the divorce. At that point, I started screenshotting everything. Sent it all to my email. Backed it up to Google Drive. Hell, I even used my phone to take pictures of the iPad screen, just in case something got deleted. The messages went back months. Every girls' night. Every work event. Every real estate conference. She wasn't working. She was with him. And her friends weren't just covering for her. They were helping coordinate it. There was even a message from the night I proposed. While I was sitting there, nervous, waiting for our dinner reservation and going over my speech in my head, She was texting him. Don't worry, baby. This doesn't change anything. It's just business. You're the one I really love. I didn't sleep at all that night. I just sat in the living room, scrolling through months of lies, trying to understand how someone could be that cold. How do you lie to someone every single day, sleep next to them, plan a future together, while secretly setting them up for destruction? The next evening, when she got back from showing houses, which, according to the messages, actually meant she'd been at his place, I was ready. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just handed her the iPad, already open to the messages. She walked in around 7 p.m., cheerful as ever, talking about how she showed 3 properties that day. Narrator voice. She absolutely did not show any houses. I let her talk for a minute while she put her things down. She even asked what I wanted to do for dinner, like everything was completely normal. I had spent the whole day rehearsing what I was going to say, but when the moment came, I couldn't get a single word out. So I just handed her the iPad. At first, she tried to act confused. What am I supposed to be looking at? She said casually. But then she noticed the dates. And she literally dropped the iPad onto the coffee table. You ever see someone's expression just completely collapse? Like the mask they've been wearing suddenly disappears? That's exactly what happened. In the span of a few seconds, she went from confused, to panicked, to furious. She immediately started yelling about how I invaded her privacy and had no right to go through her messages. Seriously? That's what you're focusing on? I stayed quiet. Years of bartending teaches you how to keep your composure when things get heated. I just kept scrolling through the messages while she spiraled. Then I pulled up the ones from the night I proposed and handed the iPad back to her. Read that one out loud, I said. She didn't. Instead, she started crying. But not the kind of crying where someone feels guilty. This was manipulative crying, the kind meant to make you feel like the bad guy. She kept saying it was a mistake, that it didn't mean anything, that Connor was her past, and I was her future. Yeah, right. Based on what I had just read, I wasn't her future. I was her financial plan, her backup until she could cash out. And then, somehow, she tried to turn it on me. Said I was emotionally unavailable because I worked nights. Said she felt lonely, and that Connor understood her better because they had similar backgrounds. And then she dropped this gem. If you hadn't gone through my private messages, we could have been happy. That's when I finally lost a bit of my composure. I still wasn't yelling, but I definitely wasn't calm anymore. I asked her if we could have been happy while her friends were helping plan our wedding and our divorce at the same time. I asked her how many of our special moments she had ruined by texting him right afterward. The engagement, holidays, birthdays. There were messages to him within hours of every single one. Then she switched strategies, fast. Suddenly, it wasn't about feelings anymore. It was about money. But the wedding deposits. My parents already paid for everything. What are people going to think? Not a single word about loving me. Not one real apology. Just panic about appearances and finances. I told her the wedding was off. And I gave her 30 days to move out. I made sure to say it clearly, as per our state's tenant laws, because I had already looked it up earlier that day. She wasn't on the lease, but she'd lived there long enough to have rights. I was angry, but I wasn't stupid. That's when she pulled out her phone. I assumed she was calling her parents. Nope. She was texting that group chat. Yeah, those friends. She was calling in backup. You're going to regret this, she said while typing. You have no idea who you're messing with. I actually laughed. It sounded like something out of a bad crime movie. I told her again, 30 days, pack your stuff, get out. And that I'd go stay at a friend's place for the night, so she could have space. I started throwing some clothes into a bag for work the next day. Meanwhile, she's still on her phone, crying, but also kind of smiling. That should have been my first real warning that something wasn't right. I was almost out the door when she said, they're already on their way. You should stay and hear their side. Now, I'm not a small guy. I work in a bar. I know how to handle myself if things get tense. But something about the way she said that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I decided to start recording on my phone, just in case anything happened. Thank God I did. I had only made it about halfway to my car when I saw them pull into the parking lot. All 5 of her friends showed up in 2 different cars. The 2 lawyers, the finance executive, the doctor, and the marketing director. They had changed out of their work clothes by then. Honestly, they looked like they had all just come from the gym or something. And none of them looked calm. So there I was, standing in the parking lot, with 5 angry women climbing out of their cars while Brianna watched the whole thing from our apartment balcony. My phone was recording in my pocket. Again, thank God I made that call. And in that moment, I'm trying to figure out whether I should run back inside or make a break for my car. Before I can even choose, Vanessa, the finance exec, starts screaming that I'm an abusive piece of shit and that they're not going to let me hurt Brianna anymore. I'm standing there like, what? Then I notice the other 4 spreading out around me. That's when it hits me. They're trying to block me from both exits. my car, and the building entrance. Lauren, the first lawyer, pulls out her phone and starts recording. And in this loud, fake calm voice, she says, "We're only here to help Brianna get her things safely. Nobody wants violence." Meanwhile, Tiffany, the other lawyer, is standing there texting somebody and grinning like this is all entertainment to her. Danielle, the doctor, and Brooke, the marketing director, mostly just stand there looking uneasy, but they're still trying to act tough. I kept my voice as steady as I could, raised my hands where everyone could see them, and said, "I gave Brianna 30 days notice, exactly the way the law requires. I'm leaving for the night so she can have space. Please don't make this worse." That's when Vanessa got right up in my face. She starts yelling that they know all about my abuse and that they're not going to let Brianna spend one more night with a monster like me. At that point, I'm backing away, hands still up, telling them, "There are security cameras everywhere, and I'm recording this. Just let me leave." Looking back, mentioning that I was recording was probably my biggest mistake. Because the second I said that, Lauren yelled, "He's threatening to release private recordings of Brianna. Get his phone." And after that, the whole thing went completely off the rails. Vanessa lunged straight for my jacket pocket where my phone was. I turned to keep her away from it, and that's when Tiffany grabbed me from behind, full-on tackled me. Now, I'm 6'1", and she was maybe 5'4". But I found out during the trial that she played rugby in college, and she clearly knew exactly what she was doing. I went down hard. I'm on the ground with Tiffany trying to lock me into some kind of hold, Vanessa kicking me, and Lauren still recording the whole thing. But now she's shouting, "Stop resisting. Why are you fighting back?" Danielle and Brooke were standing there watching, looking scared, but neither of them stepped in to stop it. And the whole time, I'm doing everything I can not to fight back, because I know exactly how it would look. Big guy, smaller women, one wrong move from me, and suddenly, I'm the villain. So I'm just trying to protect my head and survive without hurting anybody. And then Brianna comes running out of the apartment. And man, even now, I still get shaky thinking about this part. She was carrying our kitchen knife block. Not just one knife. The entire damn wooden block with all of them. She's screaming that I need to learn my lesson, and then she starts handing knives out to her friends. I'm not embarrassed to admit it. I panicked. Tiffany still had me pinned in that hold. Vanessa was still kicking me, and now they had knives. I managed to free one arm, pulled out my phone, and hit the emergency SOS feature on my iPhone. You know, pressing the power button 5 times fast. It automatically called 911. Then I started yelling, "The police are coming," as loud as I could, hoping somebody in the building would hear me. Lauren, still recording like a maniac, yelled back, "No one's going to believe you." And then, Jesus Christ, Vanessa stabbed me. Like, actually stabbed me. She got me in the arm. It wasn't deep only because I jerked away at the last second, but it was still bad enough that I ended up needing 12 stitches. There was blood everywhere. And I think that finally snapped Danielle and Brooke out of it, because they started backing away. The next minute or two is mostly a blur. I remember hearing Brianna screaming from somewhere behind me, "Finish it." I remember Vanessa trying to stab me again while Tiffany yelled, "Hold him still." And then I heard sirens. A lot of them. Suddenly the whole parking lot was flooded with police cars. Thank God one of my neighbors had seen what was happening and called 911 too, so dispatch already knew this wasn't some minor incident. The cops came in with guns drawn, yelling for everybody to drop the weapons. Vanessa and Tiffany tried to run, but they didn't get far. Lauren was still recording and refused to drop her phone until one of the officers tackled her. And the craziest part? Brianna was standing there still holding the knife block, screaming that I attacked them and that they were only defending themselves. Meanwhile, I'm bleeding all over the parking lot, clearly the one who got jumped, and the whole thing is captured from at least 3 angles. My phone, the building's security cameras, and Lauren's dumbass livestream. The next few hours are kind of a haze. Ambulance ride, emergency room, police interviews, a ton of photos of my injuries. And it turned out the stab wound was only part of it. I also had 2 broken ribs, a concussion, and looked like I'd just gone multiple rounds with a UFC fighter. But here's the part that really blows my mind. Later, we found out that while I was in the ER, these idiots were at the police station arguing with officers about getting their phones back so they could delete some personal stuff. Lauren, yes, an actual lawyer, apparently said, "If you look at our group chat, it'll be misinterpreted." The days right after the attack were completely insane. That first night, I was still in the ER getting stitched up and treated. And pro tip, when a nurse asks your pain level and you say something like, maybe a 4 or 5, even though you've got broken ribs, they assume you're trying to act tough and usually give you the strong pain meds anyway. So yeah, I was pretty out of it. While they were patching me up, this victim advocate from the DA's office came to talk to me. She started explaining all kinds of legal stuff, but honestly, I was so drugged up on pain medication that most of it barely registered. The one thing I do remember clearly was her saying, "This is the clearest case of premeditated assault I've seen in years." At the time, I didn't realize just how accurate that statement really was. Meanwhile, Brianna and her little psycho squad were having their own unforgettable night down at county jail. I found out later they had to put all of them in separate cells because they kept trying to coordinate their stories. Lauren, lawyer number 1, was demanding her one phone call like she thought she was in some TV drama. Tiffany, lawyer number 2, tried pulling the whole "do you know who I am" routine. And Vanessa, the one who stabbed me, apparently had a complete meltdown when they took her designer jacket into evidence because it had my blood all over it. Now here's where things get really good. Remember how I said Lauren had been recording everything? Well, she wasn't just recording. She had actually been live streaming the whole thing to their private Instagram group. Once the cops got warrants for their phones and social media accounts, they found everything. And I mean everything. Not just evidence of the attack, but months of messages showing they had been planning something like this. That group chat turned out to be an absolute goldmine. These highly educated, supposedly sophisticated professionals had literally typed out the plan in advance. Wait for Brianna to push me into getting angry. Record me being abusive, which basically meant me defending myself. Edit the footage to make me look violent. File fake domestic violence charges. Get me arrested. Get me removed from my own apartment. Help Brianna move Connor in while I sat in jail. And then wait for the wedding date to pass. The plan was for Brianna to file for divorce, claim emotional distress, and then use those edited videos to squeeze a bigger settlement out of me. They had everything mapped out like some kind of twisted PowerPoint presentation. I'm not even kidding. There were messages discussing camera angles, who would film what, and how each person would play their role. And the craziest part? They were using their work phones. Yeah, these absolute geniuses were planning a felony assault on corporate devices. But it somehow gets even worse. 2 days after the attack, while I'm still in the hospital, Brianna shows up at my job. She starts telling my staff and even customers that I'm abusive, that I attacked her friends, and that everyone needs to know the truth about me. Luckily, my assistant manager, Kevin, if you ever hear this, you're a legend, caught the whole thing on security cameras and called the police. And that wasn't a one-time thing. She came back 3 more times. Each time, she brought along a different friend, Danielle or Brooke, since those 2 weren't in jail, to witness her version of events. They were even filming it, probably thinking they were building evidence. Yeah, those videos ended up being used against them instead. Eventually, the police arrested her for violating the emergency restraining order. Then Connor got involved. Remember him? The ex. The lawyer. This guy decides it's a good idea to start sending threatening emails, both to me and to the officers who arrested Brianna's friends. And I'm not talking subtle threats. I mean full-on movie villain energy. Stuff like, "You don't know who you're dealing with," and "I have connections in the DA's office. This all goes away if you drop the charges." And here's the kicker. He sent those emails from his law firm account. A licensed attorney, threatening a victim and law enforcement, using his official, traceable email. The DA's office must have been thrilled when they got their hands on that. About a week after the attack, the bail hearing took place. Their defense attorneys showed up looking like they walked straight out of a legal drama. Perfect suits, confident attitudes, acting like their clients were pillars of the community. They kept going on about their clients' reputations, their careers, their contributions to society. Meanwhile, the judge, this older guy, looked like he was barely staying awake during their whole speech. But then the prosecutor stood up, and that's when everything changed. He just started laying out evidence one piece at a time. Security footage from multiple angles in the building. The video from my phone. Lauren's live stream. Screenshots of the group chats. Search histories. Things like how to make self-defense look real, and what happens if you stab someone in self-defense. The threatening emails from Connor. Footage of Brianna harassing me at work. Medical reports showing I only had defensive injuries. Witness statements from neighbors. And the knife, with Vanessa's fingerprints and my DNA. I swear, watching the judge's face was something else. He went from bored grandpa to completely furious in about 2 seconds. He set bail at $600,000 each. Vanessa, Tiffany, and Lauren were all ordered to surrender their passports and wear ankle monitors since they were considered flight risks. Apparently, they all had international money and assets. Danielle and Brooke, since they didn't directly participate in the attack, faced lesser charges and lower bail, but still had to wear monitors. Brianna got hit with conspiracy charges and had to give up her passport too. But the biggest twist came about 2 weeks later. Brooke finally cracked. She'd been spiraling since the attack, and eventually her lawyer reached out to the DA's office to negotiate a deal. And what she brought with her blew everything wide open. She had a second group chat that the others didn't even know about, one where they were way more explicit about what they were planning. There were voice messages from Brianna describing how they had practiced the attack at Danielle's home gym. Videos of them talking through how to stage everything to look like self-defense. Messages explaining how they chose my apartment specifically because they knew where the security cameras were and thought they could manipulate the footage. And the most messed up part? She had a video of all of them celebrating at some wine bar after my engagement. While I was texting my family, telling them the good news, they were sitting there planning how to destroy my life and help Brianna get a bigger payout in the divorce. The trial finally started in November, about 7 months after everything happened. Those months in between, they were brutal. Brianna, along with Danielle and Brooke, who were out on bail, kept trying to smear my name around town. They created fake social media accounts and posted edited clips from the attack. They tried contacting my employees to dig up anything they could use against me. They even showed up at my parents' house to tell their side of the story. Luckily, my lawyer, assigned through the DA's office since this was a criminal case, was an absolute force. She was this small woman in her 50s who looked like someone's sweet aunt, but in the courtroom, she was terrifying. The first thing she told me was simple: document everything and don't engage. So that's exactly what I did. Every fake account, every message, every attempt at harassment. It all went into a folder that just kept strengthening the case against them. The trial itself felt unreal. Their defense strategy was something else. They claimed they were protecting Brianna from an abusive relationship, despite having zero actual evidence. And somehow, they also argued self-defense, even though they were the ones who showed up with knives. Their lawyers tried to paint me as this violent, controlling boyfriend because let me check, caught her cheating and asked her to move out. Like seriously? I was on the stand for 2 full days. They threw everything at me, called me a liar, tried to provoke me, suggested I was the real abuser. At one point, they even tried to twist things into me being homophobic because I didn't want Brianna spending time alone with her friends. You know, the same friends who were helping her cheat on me. But working in a bar teaches you how to stay calm when people are trying to get under your skin. So I stayed steady and just told the truth. Meanwhile, the prosecution's case? It was incredible to watch. They set up this huge screen in the courtroom and presented everything step by step. Security footage of them arriving. Video of them surrounding me. My phone recording of the attack. Lauren's live stream showing the knives. Building camera footage of the assault. Police body cam footage of their arrest. Video of Brianna harassing me at work. Screenshots of the group chats. Connor's threats. Medical images of my injuries. And the knife, with Vanessa's fingerprints and my blood. But the real turning point? Brooke's testimony. She took the plea deal, smart move, and laid everything out for the jury. She explained how they had been planning this for months. How Brianna had been cheating even before the engagement, but wanted to wait until after the wedding to get more money. How they practiced the attack. How they planned to make it look like self-defense. You should have seen the jury's faces while she was talking. It became very clear, very quickly. These weren't just friends who got carried away trying to protect someone. This wasn't some impulsive mistake. It was a calculated setup designed to frame me, get me arrested, and help Brianna cash out in a divorce. And then, Brianna took the stand to defend her friends. Yeah, that was a terrible decision. Honestly, it was a complete train wreck. The prosecutor barely had to do anything. She basically talked herself into a confession. She started off crying, telling the jury how scared she had been of me, which made zero sense, considering there was no evidence of abuse, and she had been living with me willingly the entire time. Then things shifted. The moment they showed her the messages about planning the attack, she got defensive, and then angry. She started snapping back, saying I deserved everything because I went through her iPad. But the absolute worst, best part? She slipped. She casually mentioned that Connor, you remember him, the lawyer boyfriend, had helped her write the fake police report accusing me of abuse. She said it out loud, on the stand, under oath. The second that came out, the prosecutor's face lit up like it was Christmas morning. At that point, their entire defense just collapsed. The jury didn't need long. 6 hours. That's all it took for them to come back with guilty verdicts. Vanessa, Tiffany, and Lauren, the ones who actually attacked me, were convicted of attempted aggravated assault, conspiracy, and several additional charges. Danielle was found guilty of conspiracy and accessory charges. Brooke, because she cooperated and testified, got a plea deal and avoided jail time. Then came sentencing. And that was something else. The judge did not hold back. He called it one of the most deliberate and malicious cases he had seen in over 30 years on the bench. He even pointed out that the fact they were all professionals, lawyers, doctors, executives, made it worse because they fully understood what they were doing. Then he handed down the sentences. Vanessa, the one who stabbed me, got 36 months in state prison. No chance of parole for at least 24 months, followed by 5 years of probation. Tiffany, the rugby tackle lawyer, got the exact same sentence. Lauren, the one who live-streamed everything, same deal. Danielle, who didn't directly attack me, got 18 months of probation and 300 hours of community service. Brooke, because she took the plea and testified, received 12 months of probation. And Brianna? Her case was separated. She eventually took a plea deal, but I'll get into that another time. And then there's Connor. Yeah, just wait until you hear what happened to him. Let's just say things did not end well. Every single one of them lost their careers. Both lawyers? Disbarred. Obviously. The doctor lost her medical license. The finance exec lost all her certifications. Everything they worked for? Gone. Their reputations? Destroyed. And their freedom? Yeah, that's gone for a while too. Anyway, I'll update if anything else happens. And seriously, thanks to everyone for the support and comments.